Are you considering trying to run a game which utilizes odd-shaped math rocks in a third place like a brewery, but want to hear how it's gone for someone else before you try it out yourself? Or do you wonder how your games could become more like a Monty Python sketch? Or have you ever wanted to know how Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program actually plays at the table? Is it a viable game or just an amusing gimmick? Well, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and if those are questions which interest you, then stick around. Because this past weekend, I ran Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program at a local brewery, and it was a blast. Let's roll it. Before we begin, thanks to everyone who's done the whole like, share, comment, and subscribe routine for any of the videos on this channel. If you consider doing that for this video, it would be a huge help to DM Tales. And now, to the report. Full disclosure, I was given a review copy of Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program by Exalted Funeral earlier this year. And the moment I opened its pages, I knew I wanted to run it. So much so that I went out and purchased both a second set of the dice and the Head of Light entertainment screen, the GM screen, for myself. The program is a random, ridiculous time where ultra-serious characters find themselves faced with absurd situations. There are extra funny dice, more Easter eggs than any normal person could hope to find, and a swingy system in which a character's traits fluctuate in a wild mosh pit of various random number generators. I just needed an opportunity to run it, which is why I'm glad I live near Brewery 33 in Riverton, New Jersey. It's a great locale, which is laid back and friendly. The owners have also been beyond helpful whenever I wanted to run a game in their establishment. And this is where I wanted to run the program. In addition to my Monty Python table, I recruited my friend Josh to run a game of his choosing. He ended up running the Nordic horror game Vaesen. Now, Josh is a terrific GM. He's actually my daughter's favorite, which wounds me just a little bit. And he specializes in horror games. So I knew anyone who sat at his table would have a fantastic time. I hoped that we'd have enough players to fill both tables, and we actually did. See, in addition to some folks who are regular players at any event that I hold, we also had some new folks join the fun. Josh invited 2 of the players from his soon-to-end 5e campaign to come, and one of my regular event attendees also invited one of his friends to join in. In addition to all this, one of my local friends also said she'd drop by, and she did indeed join the madness at my Monty Python table. Her reward was having her character being kicked into a soccer goal several miles away by a giant foot. Awesome. In the end, including the GMs, there were 11 folks who were involved, and regulars invited some friends. That is a huge win. So I had a place to run the game and players on whom to inflict it. What was it like running Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program? The program is as fun and as random as the game purports to be. The system is simple. Players roll the die type which matches their called for trait. If they roll the max number, they struth. Their die type increases by 1 step. The player rolls that new die and adds both results together. They also receive a merit. If they roll a 1, they spam. Their die type decreases by 1 step and they receive a demerit. Traits have accoutrements, which also add +1 to all rolls for that trait, and they also may add other bonuses depending on circumstances. If a player takes damage, either a bit of death or a bit of loony, they may sacrifice one of their accoutrements in order to deflect that damage. Oh, and the players also may have retainers who give them additional accoutrements, or accoutrement, but they need to be paid every day or they quit. And our table's bard had a poet who was paid with having one romantic scene displayed to him each day. It was wild. For all its simplicity, there are a number of bits and bobs both players and hulls need to keep in mind during play. Merits, for example, they can be used to buy extra dice for a roll, which is something I forgot completely about. Sorry, players at the table. Players also need to be mindful about collecting too many demerits, as each whole persona, there are 18 of them, has a tolerance threshold. And crossing that threshold leads to the dire consequence of a beshrew-ment. This is actually what led to my poor friend's character, Tripton Cowlicker, getting kicked into a large soccer net that was several miles away. But the crowd went wild, though, so that was a nice plus. Literally, it gave the other players +1 on all their trait rolls for the rest of the scene. Now, the whole also has to keep track of their complaint letters because they can only survive so many before getting sacked, which brings out another whole persona. Complaint letters can either be triggered by beschruments, we did have one of those, or written by the players and submitted to the BBC with great solemnity by reading them aloud at the table. It's all great fun, but there are quite a few moving parts. There's also a lot of page flipping in the core rulebook, unless the whole prepares in advance. Adversaries are found in one section of the book, but the whole needs to be familiar with their personalities, as well as the traits to which they are silly, serious, or indifferent. That is, roll twice, take the lower, roll twice, take the higher, and just doesn't affect them at all. A good whole must also be aware of the adversary's mode of defense and how they attack, and I put that in quotes, the PCs. The whole must also have then quick access to each of the whole personas because they each have their own dislikes, likes, personality quirks, thresholds for both beschrumment and sacking, and their own table on which to roll when a beschrumment is triggered. Now these are all conveniently set in a single section of the book, but when a beschrumment is triggered, the whole could need to flip from the current adversary listing in the whole listing while keeping their finger in place in the quest write-up. And yes, there is a blessed book ribbon in the core rulebook, and you can use other bookmarks to mark the other spots, but that would make the book look like a bizarre porcupine, and who knows which bookmark is which. One solution for this is to use the PDF on a tablet or a laptop, bookmarking all the important bits. But after a while, the list gets so long it becomes hard to scan rapidly, which leads to the reenactors getting bored as the whole flips through where they're supposed to be. My solution for this was to print out the 18 whole personas from the PDF, double-sided, with the personality on the front and their beschrumment table on the back. I also had the current whole persona in front of me at all times and kept the others nearby in case he got sacked. Sadly, he did not. I was kind of looking forward to that. Now, to keep track of the adversaries that appeared in the quest, as well as some of the other rule bits I wanted to remember, I captured some images of the needed pages and stuck them in Apple's whiteboard application, Freeform. These I grouped together and set up into scenes, which made them a lot faster to access. I could also mark them up with my pencil as contestations took place, and it worked well. But I will say that my inexperience with the system led me to missing some of the small details which I'd added to the board to remind me about, like how to spend merits to get extra dice. It's a good solution, if not perfect. The point is, when you are running the program, don't just use the book at the table. Have some notes and a plan to access the information you're going to need during the game. Now look, this is true for every system. But it feels like the need is dialed up a bit for this game because everything has such a deep personality to it. Also, having the whole screen, the head of light entertainment screen, is a huge benefit. It allows the whole to display what persona is active, keep track of complaint letters that come in, displays vital bits for the whole to know on their side of the screen, and shows which color each of the extra funny dice is. See, most folks don't have a D14, a D16, and a D18 handy, and even if they do, telling the difference between a D14, a D16, and a D18 is next to impossible at a glance. So knowing what color each one is, well, that's rather helpful. Thankfully, in addition to the key on the back of the whole screen, the character sheets also show which color represents each die. So if you are planning to run Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program, I do recommend printing out the character sheets in color to avoid boring pauses where people try to count the sides of a D16. It is not fun. As some of the dice are non-standard, I also recommend having at least one extra set of the official dice at the table for the group to use. Not only is the official set color-coded with the character sheet, it comes in a fantastic box, which makes travel and storage rather easy. For me, the most difficult aspect of running the system was getting the players to buy into the idea that this is not a see thing, kill thing game. At the start, my players kept asking if they could go and pick up some weapons because one or two didn't have anything that looked weaponish among their accoutrements. And they were supposed to be guards, so there was a reason for that. But understand, encounters in this game are not combat, they are contestations. These can include someone swinging a mace or a sword or hitting them over the head with a Latin tablet. These things did happen, but it isn't required. And I will say that folks arrived at that understanding over the course of the game for the most part, but recognize that adversaries are for killing is a rather difficult TTRPG habit for a lot of players to break. Now, I did have one player who was running a socialist peasant who defeated an adversary by insisting that the best way to take down capitalism's systematized inequity is by doing so from within. That was a lot of fun. Our bard was also quite willing to sing a song at just about anything with really fun lyrics, which was also a wonderful diversion. I will say that I do need to do a better job explaining contestation does not equal combat. And if you are an aspiring whole, I recommend emphasizing it during setup at the table. The narrative is just as likely to progress if you stop to chat with an adversary about the need for rules regulating the width of wagon treads than if you move to chop their heads off with a sword. Now, please, I do understand that chopping heads off in TTRPGs is a time-honored tradition. Don't get me wrong. But insisting that the Homeowners Association is going to levy a fine on the bandit camp for painting their barricades the wrong color just feels more interesting somehow. One of the minor frustrations for the players is that a number of adversaries in our quest called for traits none of them actually possessed. This left them rolling an insignificant D4 for their defense checks against those particular adversaries. And were I to run this in the future, if I knew there was a key trait that none of the characters had, I might decide to shift an adversary attack to a trait that at least some of the party possessed. It would make the trait rolls more interesting. So what I did do was allow the players to narrate how their characters defended themselves from various assaults. If they described their actions well, I declared intercourse the dice, triggering an automatic success in that contest. Because I knew the die rolls were more likely to prove uninteresting, I do say I was a tad more inclined to scream that wonderful phrase during our contestations than I might otherwise be. I come away from my second open adventure event more firm in my belief that third place games are a great way to expand our gaming experience. So if you have a third place like a brewery or a coffee shop near you, and you've been looking for more opportunities to play, trying to run a game there might prove to be a really good idea. I come away from running Monty Python's Cocurricular medieval reenactment program with a deep appreciation for the system. Is it the perfect brewery game? Maybe not, because there's enough bits and bobs, nuance, and significant role-play necessities that it could take some players a while to feel comfortable with it, particularly in a one-shot situation where players are just used to running around having one combat after another and killing everything in sight because it's just a one-shot. And I admit that might be unfair since the program is easier to set up and run 5e by an order of several magnitudes, and that seems to be a really popular brewery-style game. But at the same time, I've got some games in my pocket that I can gather folks around the table and be up and running in under 5 minutes, including character creation. So I may be an outlier when it comes to this question. On the other hand, do I think this is a good brewery game? Oh, heck yeah, I do. It is a game of pure chaos, which goes in all sorts of absurd directions and demands players look up from their sheets in order to deal with the narrative in front of them. To top it all off, being out and about in public and shouting, "Make way! Make way! Make way!" in my best Gumby voice made this game worth running all on its own. I am going to run Monty Python's Cocurricular medieval reenactment program again in the near future, and I may have to try to make my own quests for it as well. I want to shout out all the wonderful coffee contributors who support this channel out of the kindness of their own hearts. If you liked this video and want to contribute some caffeination to DM Tales, the link is right over there. And if you're looking for some fun t-shirts or hoodies to wear, check out my merch store, which has fun designs like this one declaring that you're no bandwagon fan, you have always loved the hefty D12. Coming up on the channel, I've got my review of Dreams and Machines about halfway written, and we'll soon start reading through Dave Ward's urban fantasy game, Ironbound. I'm really looking forward to that. After that will come Star Trek Adventures and all the other amazing games that you see on my shelf. And if you want to see my other videos on Monty Python's Cocurricular Medieval Reenactment program, including a full review and an interview with the lead game designer, Brian Saliba, check out the playlist below. Until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.